Hello and welcome to our next TMG Fireside Chat. I'm your host, John Mackey. In this episode, we chat with Dave Brown, president of Nuvo Solutions, and a good friend of mine. Surprisingly, this is Dave's first time in the chat. Dave and I have known each other for over 8 years and have shared perspectives on a number of challenges we faced in our businesses. We've also supported each other as mentors and advisors over the years as we have faced the challenges you don't typically see in growing businesses. As you can imagine, Dave and I can talk about a lot of things, and you can get a sense of that for this in this podcast. Because we are not short for words, this recording goes on for over an hour. But we also know our audience, and it's hard to get them to be focused for an hour. So therefore, we're going to break this into 2 parts. This first part is focused on sales and sharing our perspectives on key characteristics and behaviors of successful salespeople, especially the importance of understanding, quote unquote, why, and listening to your customer. We hope you enjoy this chat with Dave, and then let's get started. Here's the start to part number 1. Hello and welcome to our next episode of the TMG Fireside Chat. Today, as we did back in Puerto Rico a few years ago when we had a bucket of beer around our first few episodes with Todd Stevens and Paul Rivers, I am joined by my good friend, somebody I've known for 8 years now.
Yeah, it's 8 years.
8 years.
8 years, yeah.
Dave Brown.
I just wasn't gray when we met.
No, but it was longer.
It was longer, but this wasn't gray. Yeah, it wasn't gray. Neither was this, but yeah.
So cheers, brother.
Cheers, man. It's good to see you.
Great to see you.
As always,
and,
the mayor.
Dave and I go back, like we said, 8 years. But met Dave initially under the Nuvo umbrella when I was at Hiller. And over those 8 years, I don't buy Nuvo equipment. I am a brand ambassador, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
A big fan of what Dave and Emily have built, and grateful that created a really good friendship with.
Yeah, me too, man.
With your brother.
We've actually been kind of influential in what we built. So, not only the relationship, but brutal honesty is kind of hard to find sometimes in business, and so cheers to you for that. Yeah. So it's been fun. It's been a fun journey, and I'm really kind of concerned that we're recording our conversations. So you know what? We'll just throw it out there for the public
as we're drinking.
Yeah,
bourbon.
We'll just see what happens.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Right?
It is 5 o'clock. Well, it is back home in East.
Yeah,
I'm in Eastern time zone, so I'm easily I'm good.
There you
Fantastic.
Go.
I'm in good shape.
So an old fashioned. Do we know what type of bourbon?
I do. I actually chose this one. So obviously we went for like a rye, and they were just out of the Angels Envy one. I figured we just do that for fun. But we went with Maker's 46 on this one, and I told them to go heavy on the Maker's 46. So yeah,
that's perfect.
Yeah,
it's
a good blend.
I like it. Maker's
was interesting. So I was at the bar and I was trying to order it, and the guy that was beside me, and I was trying to go through it, and I kept talking to him. He's with one of the fire companies here, and I was like, I'm having a hard time choosing which bourbon. And I was like, why? I was like, well, the Angel's Envy is out. And I was like, he's like, well, you really don't make an old fashioned. I was like, I was going to. And he's like, we should drink that straight. I'm like, yeah, this will be it'll be gone very quickly with John and I. And I said, so I'm trying to find something we could sip on, ice can melt, things like that. And we had this long discussion, and he was very versed in it. And I looked down at his name badge. It said Louisville, Kentucky. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you can help me choose. That's fine. And he pulled up his pants, and he had some socks on it. It said, keep it neat. And it was a picture
of course.
I liked it. But he's like, you ever been to Bourbon and Beyond? I'm like, it's so weird that this guy's asking me if I have been to Bourbon and Beyond. I'm like, yeah, actually the guy that I'm getting ready to go meet we went to Bourbon and Beyond together last year, and it was amazing. So yeah. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, it's weird how that works, right? It's weird how that works.
Right place, right time.
Right place, right time. Right place, right time.
So that means we're supposed to be doing this right now.
At least a little bit.
Well, great. Well, Dave, as you know, I've been doing this podcast now for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. Mm-hmm. And the intent is to obviously talk, we call it the Fireside Chat, to kind of put an umbrella around a lot of different things in the fire protection space, right? We talk about fire protection contractors we've done. We talked a lot about leadership and mentorship and some of the challenges the industry faces. And it's an overarching, I think, series of conversations. Mm-hmm.
And so I've always wanted to use this as an opportunity just to get stories out, right?
Sure.
We learn every day from the things that we do as we run our businesses, as we interact with people, as we interact with customers, and as we just kind of navigate life, right? And, you know, you and I talk quite often, but I think that what's interesting over the last couple of years, because now I'm running my own business,
Right.
You know,
Right.
and part of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is that we were at a service trade conference and, FSSA conference at the beach.
It was.
And we had dinner, and you're like, you asked me some hard questions about, why not?
Yeah.
And so along those same lines.
That's what friends do, though, man. They push each other a little bit. Like that why question hurts sometimes.
Exactly, but again, it's some accountability, and
I love it.
It's a kick in the ass to say, hey, there's a different way.
Yeah.
So in that context, I look at you and how you run your business. You are a very professional salesperson. I've been able to watch you switch from Dave being, hang out Dave and just let's roll and have some fun, and then when you're working, watching you sell is a master at work. And so talk to me about your perspective on sales and some of the things that you think are important for anyone that's in a sales role. I don't care if we're selling mobility, GPS, or phones, or if you're selling fire equipment. What are some of the things that you want to share with somebody that's trying to manage a sales career?
Yeah, I think the worst compliment that any salesperson can ever get is that, man, you can sell ice to Eskimos. The problem with that is that Eskimos don't eat ice. And typically, everybody's like, hey, man, you're really good at yours. And I appreciate the compliment. I don't know that I'm necessarily good at sales, but I am good at asking questions. And when I was a kid in school, I used to get in trouble all the time because I would just keep asking questions. And it's the what, the hows, and the whys, and it would just drive people completely nuts, right? And I try to get to the root of what that pain is for a lot of people. And it doesn't matter whether it's cell phones, tablets, telematics, fire safety equipment, whatever it is. It's just uncovering that. What's the root? What's the root cause, right? And I think that's the thing, is that if you just find the needs first and providing it fits a budget, you're good, right? And then of course you have to offer the service and the service after the sale and the customer support and all the things that go along with it, because all of it doesn't matter if you're just going to burn and churn through stuff where you close for instance, how we met, you close a hiller and then you're no longer servicing hiller because the back end can't keep up with the front end.
Right.
It creates problems, right? So you have to deliver a quality product above and beyond everything else. And I think in the beginning days for Nuvo, that was very hard because the quality product was myself and my wife and like one other person in my garage, right? But we did it. There was a lot of long hours and it was fun. But we never oversold what we could do at that time, right? So I remember some of the very first conferences that I went to, and we just never really oversold anything. Like we just always underpromised and really just drove to what makes this industry tick. Because when I met you 8 years ago, I knew nothing about fire safety service. I knew nothing. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is I didn't need to know a lot. I just needed to know what were the pains and the problems that everybody was experiencing.
Yeah. What you can solve.
What can I solve, right? And the reason Nuvo kind of went to field services is that there was a lot of pain in there, right? There's a lot of problems with standardization. There's a lot of problems with other stuff. So I think the two key components are finding the need and then just studying and learning at all times, right? And every time that I think I know pretty much everything about it, I realize very immediately that I know nothing about it. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but I just often when I go into sales presentations or I watch either new reps or other organizations do it, because obviously I have partnerships all over the nation doing different things, and some of these partnerships gets kind of more technical, and people literally will hop on these calls, salespeople, if you will, and their idea is that if I just talk at this guy long enough and tell him about all the crap that I sell, eventually something's going to stick against the wall and he'll lock onto that. Right. And they get excited about their 30 and 40% close ratios. Yeah. And I start most of my conversations with, I don't even know if our two organizations can work together. Yeah. Like, I don't even know if it's going to make sense. I have about 30 questions I get ready to ask. And I don't say it like that, but I literally will just go through probably 25, 30 qualifying questions, because I don't I don't want bad customers. And I think a lot, obviously our relationship speaks to that, and a lot of the relationships that, that Nuvo still carries or that I carry they're long-term, they're not short-term.
Right.
And the short-term ones are probably ones that I didn't ask enough questions in the first half. Hopefully it's not that we didn't deliver service, but probably didn't ask enough questions to see if we were following the need.
I'd respond to that. At the same time, that customer didn't necessarily understand what their challenge was either.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Get to the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
It's not about the price on an invoice.
Right.
Right. Let's talk about how somebody's using the device. So let's talk about, the device that's sitting on a shelf, or,
right.
Or the lack of insurance claims, or too many insurance claims, and we don't have cameras.
Well, I told my sales guys, or when anybody comes in and we're doing the first trainings, I was like, you ever like hung out with like a 3-year-old before, and they just keep asking why?
Yeah.
Right. Louis C.K. does a great skit about that, by the way. So look it up, people. Go look at Louis C.K. Kid Ask Why. It's great. It's totally not PG-13, but anyways, he's amazing. But the thing is that if you ask seven whys, which don't ever do this to your clients, but the root of it is that you ask 7 questions, and this question is always why.
Yeah.
So for instance, someone goes, well, I like kayaking. Why? Because I get to get outside. Why is that important to you? Because I like fresh air. Why is fresh air part of your life? Or why is it that important to you? Yeah. Oh, because I'm inside of an office all day. Why are you inside of an office all day? Because that's the way that I pay the bills. Why is that attack? And you eventually somewhere along the way, by the time you get to 7 whys, it's like, oh, I like to get outside so I could be recharged for my family. Right. And it's like, okay, that's the thing. So we need to find ways to get you recharged for your family. And typically there's 30 how, what, why questions that you could run through in a series of events and then stack together the true need. And then sometimes you get about halfway down, you realize there's no need. So,
right. So my take there is, I'm not a salesperson. For me, it's always a conversation.
Sure.
Right? And we're going to find commonalities.
Correct.
Right?
100%.
The conversation will flow one with the other. And then we then say, to your point, well, how did you think you ended up in that spot? Or,
right.
What have you done to try to solve that challenge? Right. But at the end of the day, I think you hit it early. You listen
a lot. And
you should be listening more than talking.
Yeah.
Right. Listen and process.
Yeah.
And kind of let the conversation ebb and flow. Yes, you understand what question you want to ask next, or where naturally it's going to direct you a certain way. Right?
There's when I started my career, this is great. This is very personal. When I started my career 20 plus years ago, I was terrified, absolutely terrified. Yeah. I won't get into the details in public why I had to start making money immediately, but it rhymes with the word pregnant wife. So I had to go, we had to do something, right? And so I decided to just get into something. I heard that you could make money at sales, right? And my uncle, my dad's twin, was a big mentor, one of the mentors of my life. He said, he was in sales, and we had a family reunion, basically 3 weeks after I started my first sales job. And he's like, the best advice I ever got was in 1970. And I was like, well, what was that? He's like, oh, it's real simple. It's the acronym WAIT. Have you ever heard this one before?
I have not heard WAIT. No.
WAIT. So it stands for, why am I talking?
Okay.
He's like, so think about that. He's like, so when you're with a client, just keep running WAIT through your mind. Pause for a second. Why am I talking? And he's like, and the other one is, beyond that, is that if you look at it that way, that there's a spot lamp, unlike this, which is a podcast where we're talking. The goal is to keep the spot lamp on your client, not you. And the only way that the spot lamp is on the client is if the client is talking. Every time that the spot lamp is on you, you're losing. Every time the spot lamp is on them, you're winning. Yeah. Look at it that way. So WAIT, why am I talking, right? Am I just talking to fill dead space? And, I don't know what to do, and I'm just going to keep talking until the guy buys? Or can I just sit back and listen and find out if it makes sense? Yep. So, yeah. The spot lamp analogy and WAIT were my first two pieces of advice in sales, and that was 20-something years ago, and I still use it today. So, yeah. I use that in life, too, because if I talk over my wife or you, it's really frustrating. So, yeah. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah. No, I think it's I've never heard of that WAIT or the spotlight analogy. I mean, again, it's just I'm always trying to listen.
Right.
But again, one of the tendencies I have, an opportunity to improve, is that I do try to find, someone tells me a story, I try to find a personal hook and then share the personal hook. Well, at that point, it's not about me.
Right.
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 Just let them soak in their
Sure.
what they just shared and ask the why and kind of,
Right.
absorb that a little bit more. So
Right.
that's really good. So one of the other things we've talked about in the past, especially over the last couple of months, 24 months or so, is challenges that we face when we run our own businesses, right? And the ability to pause.
Yeah.
For one reason or another, right?
Sure.
Either you got
100%.
punched in the gut and you got to pause.
Right. Yep.
Catch your breath.
It's a thing.
Or you see something coming and you're like, okay, I've got to figure it out.
Right.
And my wife and I, Carrie, Dave knows my wife, but
very well.
For the listener,
Yep.
we pick a word every year to kind of guide ourselves. My word this year is to be intentional.
That's cool. I like that.
Right.
I like that. Now, do you write that down somewhere, or do you how do you keep that in front of you?
It's on a notebook. It's on a when you go in my office, I'll have it somewhere in my office.
Okay.
But just a reminder, be intentional.
That's cool.
And
do you guys have like a lottery pool, or like do you sit around and think about what that word is?
We kind of look at we kind of establish what's going on in our lives, personally and professionally, and we come up with it. Last year, my wife's word was boundaries.
Oh, I like that one.
Right. So as a business owner, really trying to, how do I manage boundaries?
That's a hard one.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, I gotta ask. So is it like, does she have her word and you have your word?
Yes, totally different words.
Okay, two totally different words. Do you have to hold each other accountable to those words, or is it like personal accountability? They're like, hey, honey, you're dealing with some boundary problems right now.
We will have those conversations, not all the time, but if we see something, but we do. Very blessed with a very supportive and encouraging partner, my wife.
Yeah.
And
both of us. Cheers to that.
Yeah.
For the wife. Both of our. Yeah. There you go.
Yes.
They're great. Yeah.
They are great. But just the coaching, listening, the supportive aspect of things. But when we see something happening and we know what the word is, I'm like, I will ask, where does that fit in the boundaries scheme?
Right.
Yeah, probably accept. Right. And so that's the accountability partnership, not judging.
Right. Yeah.
Asking why, where. Right. So I bring that example up because one of my wife's, I'm gonna get a shout out, but one of my wife's best friend, as you know, we had dinner that week.
Yeah.
My wife's best friend passed away, Janelle.
Yeah.
Janelle Schiffman passed away of breast cancer in January. And Janelle's, as she's going through breast cancer treatment, her word last year was the pivot. The art of the pivot.
Okay.
And life throws some crazy stuff at you.
Yeah, it does.
And she had a pivot, her family had a pivot, and what have you. And you and I have talked about, it's a pretty emotional aspect of things, but
listen, it's fine.
Shout out to Janelle and her husband Jason.
100%. Yeah, no, that's true. Very true.
Along the lines, from a business perspective, you and I have talked about the ability to pivot. I've talked about how I've pivoted my business over the last couple of years, especially last 12, 16 months. But you and I have talked about what you've done around your pivot. So let's talk a little bit about what you've experienced over the last, 24 months or so, and what you've learned as your business has pivoted. Either you've taken another direction or it's forced you to go another direction.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I hate that. Well, I don't hate. I guess so pivot in my mind is you plant your hill and spin, right? It's kind of it.
Or just course
correcting. Yeah. So our business found itself. We were really good at what we did and still could do that, right? The problem is that, as you and I discussed, and I'll kind of equate it for some of your listeners that are in the fire protection side of things and do that, is that as you equated it to me, I said, listen, a business built on only new construction with no service, right? I think is how you put it. It's you can do that, and you can have piles of cash to be delivered at your door, and also that might not happen, right? And the problem, I think, a lot of all right. So my background was I was always in sales, right? That's always what I always did, right? Sales and understanding people and cold calling and knocking on doors and all the things. The problem with that, John, as we talked about, was that I built the company like a person would build a company, but like, I don't know, man, just go sell some shit. Everything will be fine. Like, just, you could always cure it with some sales.
Exactly.
My CFO does it all the time. He's like,
revenue cures all.
Yeah. It's like my CFO says it all the time to me. He's like, oh yeah, if Dave would just get out there and sell another $1 million, we'd be fine. I'm like, well, I did like 3 back there. Like, is that not enough? And it's no, it's still go. All right, cool. So I'm tired. Like, I'm turning gray. Like, this is getting to be a bit much. So yeah, we had to pivot. We had to pivot a little bit. And one of the things that I learned the most is that a lot of clients, as you know a little bit, and I don't want to get too much into what Nuvo does, but at the end of the day, there's some managed services piece that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And I've always been of the belief that customer service and all the stuff that goes along with it should just be part of the game.
Yeah.
The trouble with that is the way Nuvo was making money, we would get the one-time payment and then have to serve that client. And as cell phone providers and other people kept extending contracts from 1 to 2 to 3 years, our sales cycles got longer and longer and longer. Yeah. And we just kind of woke up one morning and said, something's got to change. Yeah. And then I think as I sat down with you, I mean, we're in Vegas. We're in Vegas. AFSA in Vegas, yeah.
Hanging out with Jeff Lewis.
Yeah, Jeff. Shout out to what's Jeff. Up, Jeff? Yeah, miss you, man. I asked about you today. Cheers, Jeff. Miss you, man. Miss you. But we were hanging out, and wait a minute. Is that the night that we went to the casino and
we had coffee in the morning? So it was
the morning one.
It was
we won't talk about the evening one. All right. But no, it literally did get down to how do we provide sustainable customer service without burying stateside customer service is hard. And in my industry, it's not service technicians that are out there doing service technician things. It is usually people that are answering problems, questions, and concerns behind the wall, right? And unfortunately, in my industry, which is a very tech-driven industry, a lot of that support is no longer stateside, right? So I can easily outsource everything, and create a over the seas whatever. Yeah. That's not what I want to do. I am very big about making sure that we have stateside customer service. I'm very big about the families that we serve. I'm very big about the families that rely upon Nuvo Solutions and things of that nature, right? It's like I got these people now, like I go to bed every night thinking about their families. How do we continue to handle that? So our pivot was, let's do everything that we've been doing. Let's add some enhanced features to it, which we've been working on the last year or two, and charge a nominal something, service fee or anything, but all the while save money. Yeah. Right. So a great example of that is just last week we did a proposal for a client, and it's $76,000, give or take. So it's about 76 grand annually in savings off their bill, just all their cell phone bills, and that included our little tiny fee. And I explained to them, I said, hey, listen, we can generate this for you. I can give you customer service. I can give you all this other things. However, that little thing keeps my people here to help you do that, right? And they were fine with it. Mm-hmm. And it's been eye-opening to say the least. So it's also been weird. So for those of you that are in new construction that are transferring out the other way, I feel your pain. Because it's like I could really use some of those large, big cells that are up front, and we still get them, but it's you still kind of have to do both, right? And I have to be just as excited about the client that you're taking on, that there's no big bag of cash that shows up, and it's just this little service piece. But we focused really hard over it. I appreciate you asking. We've been focusing really hard over the last year. The first year was create the processes, right? Yeah. So I was like ready, fire, aim, let's go right now, let's just go do it. And everybody else in the process, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, you got to have like some things in place. We can't just go do this, right? So I gave them 4 months. They asked for a year, gave them 4 months, and we launched, and it's been fairly successful. It's been good. It's been good, and all of our clients have been pretty damn happy about it. Yeah. It was actually Hiller, if we're being clear, Hiller was one of the very first ones that said, hey, listen, charge us to keep doing this. So it was kind of cool for them to do that. So yeah.
Well, I think it also highlights the value that you bring to your customers,
right?
Which is a differentiator. It is
definitely a differentiator than working directly with some of the bigger brands out there. Right. Yeah. So it's definitely the bigger differentiator.
And I think that to your point, your business model is high touch. Right?
Yeah,
your
very high
team,
touch. Very high touch.
You and Emily, and the relationship you develop with your customers, But I think it also highlights the fact that when your industry, I don't care what industry it is,
right,
creates an environment where you're offshoring all these support services, right? And the expectation is I want to deal with somebody in the United States, right? Or somebody that, at least is, is on my time zone or at least speaks the same language or
right.
all these other things.
I think what it gets down to, actually more than that, if I can, if we were all routed to the same person in service, no matter where they were located, and you spoke the same language, accent or not, that to me is kind of the whatever. I married my wife's part, French and American. Like, she could have an accent if she wanted, but she doesn't. I think that overall, the way that I look at it is that the true value, this podcast, everything that's along with it, is really the relationship, right? And so in our industry, and I would encourage anybody to do this, that they have one relationship expert that is in charge of that person. Okay. Small, big, large, medium, doesn't matter. You got one person that is not the sales rep, that is literally their job to just take care of that client, right? And to develop a relationship with that client and to make sure that client stays happy and fulfilled, and that they truly understand, back to the thing we talked about, the need of what that person is. Do not sell them things that they want. Drive down to that need. Listen, shut up, ask the questions, and just be that support, right? And then I think that overall, that's missing. Like, it's just missing everywhere.
Yes.
The best relationship that I've had recently was with like Amazon chatbot, when I had some grass seed delivered and the bag busted open on my front doorstep. And it was an AI bot, and it felt weird, but honestly, they solved my problems and my needs, but never asked me any questions. I just had to tell them what I wanted to do multiple times. But it was a little frustrating, but I don't know. It's just, it's a lost art. It's slowly going away. It's slowly going away.
Yeah. Especially with, I'm a strong advocate for relationships.
Sure.
Obviously you are.
The mayor, John Mackey.
Our industry, the services industry, I don't care what trade you're in, is built around relationships, trust, credibility,
I think
empathy, compassion, right? And pick a trade, right? Or any
pick
service.
Industry. Pick any industry.
It's about relationships.
And the successful ones are, right?
Like, true. Because if you become transactional, then it's just short term. It's done.
Correct.
One and done.
And I think that's the thing, is we're finding ourselves in a very transactional space. I'm actually really worried about life in general, like just in business in general, is that everything has become very transactional. The what's in it for me transaction, right? And I've always asked what's in it for us and not what's in it for me, right? Like, let's, again, back to it. You might not be my client. That's fine. That's actually really cool, because that means you need nothing and I need nothing from you, and that's great. We're equals and things are perfect. We're equals regardless, but I like to develop something if necessary. But
at the same time, I'm here when you need me, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that, okay, I get it. Your business goes another direction. You got to go take care of what you got to take, but I'm still here.
You know what I tell people about that? So it's great. So it's like, no, I don't need you. I'm like, that's fantastic. You got a spare tire though, don't you? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so you got 4 good ones. There's a spare in the trunk though, right?
A little donut.
Yeah.
Can't go over 55.
Hi, I'm the donut. I'm the full-size donut that's now missing in most cars.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so I'm the donut in the back seat. So just in case you need it, give me a holler.
That's funny. Dave's here.
Yeah.
All right. So a couple things.
Yeah.
As great perspective on the pivot, and I think it's just, again, really understanding how your business operates.
I highly don't recommend building your business as a sales guy, for what it's worth. That's not fun. If you can, build it without too much of a pivot.
Yes. Or at least be flexible enough to understand the ebbs and flows of your customers and your customers need, right? And be flexible to adapt to one customer versus the other.
Right.
100%.
Well, we hope you enjoyed listening to Dave's perspective on sales and the importance of listening to your customer and the thought process behind the why questions. As I said at the beginning, Dave and I can talk about a lot of different things. I think you sense that. Felt our relationship and friendship in the video and the audio. And so we are going to be pulling together part 2 of the Dave Brown podcast. That'll be released here in another week or so. But with that is part 1 of the Dave Brown TMG Fireside Chat. Dave and I hope you enjoyed it and you found it worthwhile, and look forward to continuing the conversation in part 2. Thank you. Have a great day.